Family is supposed to be where love begins, but for some, it's where the deepest scars are made. For these 21 pairs of Black R&B singers, being bound by blood didn't always mean harmony. Behind their shared spotlight, fame, and unforgettable hits, there were secrets, rivalries, and silent pain that tore through their relationships like a storm. Some celebrated their connection, others did everything to hide it. From jealousy and betrayal to loyalty and loss, these stories go far beyond the music. Now, for the first time, the truth behind the fame is coming to light. Jackie Wilson and Billy Davis Jr. A tearful feud between two musical bloodlines. They were cousins by blood but divided by pride. Jackie Wilson, the electrifying Mr. Excitement, set the stage on fire with his soaring voice and gravity-defying moves. He was pure R&B royalty. Billy Davis Jr., on the other hand, helped define a new era of soulful pop as a leading voice of the fifth dimension, with hits like Aquarius / Let the Sun Shine in echoing through the charts. Both brilliant, both destined for greatness. But behind the spotlight, a quiet storm was brewing, a family rift that no one saw coming. It exploded one summer night in 1967 at a star-studded music party in Detroit. Jackie, fueled by ego and perhaps a touch of resentment, publicly ridiculed Billy, accusing him of selling out, watering down black music to pander to white audiences. Billy, stunned but unshaken, fired back. He told Jackie the world was changing and so was the sound. "You're stuck in yesterday?" he snapped. The room fell silent as two icons clashed, not over talent, but over identity, legacy, and pride. Witnesses say the party turned into a war zone of words, where brotherhood gave way to bitterness. From that night on, the damage was done. Jackie refused to work with Billy, even when approached for a tribute to Black R&B pioneers. "He's not real R&B, Jackie said coldly. Billy, just as hurt, never spoke his cousin's name again, erasing him from interviews as if their bond had never existed. But fate had the final word. In 1975, Jackie collapsed on stage from a massive stroke and slipped into a coma. Quietly, without cameras or press, Billy came to his bedside. For a brief moment, the cousins faced each other one last time. No harsh words. No apologies. Just silence. A lifetime of pain lingered in that hospital room. And then, Jackie was gone. Billy went on with his career, but he never spoke of the feud publicly. If not for whispers passed around the industry, their fractured legacy might have vanished with Jackie Wilson himself. Two stars, bound by blood but torn by pride, a heartbreaking reminder that even legends aren't immune to the wounds family can leave behind. Irma Franklin and Aretha Franklin. Two sisters bound by blood but divided by destiny. While Aretha rose to global fame as the undisputed queen of soul, commanding the stage with anthems like Respect, her older sister Irma had a voice just as powerful, yet history barely left room for her light to shine. When Irma's Piece of My Heart hit the charts in 1967, it should have been her moment. But that same year, Aretha's star exploded across the world, eclipsing everything, including her own sister. Whispers of rivalry soon turned into open wounds. Media outlets constantly compared the two, turning family dinners into silent battlegrounds. The tension boiled over when Aretha was invited to a major music gala in New York, and Irma wasn't even on the guest list. Humiliated and hurt, Irma reportedly drove straight to Aretha's home in tears, demanding answers. What followed was a confrontation that shattered their sisterly bond. Irma accused Aretha of hogging the spotlight. Aretha, without flinching, told her sister she simply didn't have what it takes to make it in the business. Those words stung like a betrayal. Soon after, Irma began stepping away from the stage, canceling shows, turning down offers, choosing silence over spotlight. Rumors of jealousy spread like wildfire. And by the late 70s, many believed Irma had quietly resigned herself to a life of being forgotten, always the sister in the shadow. Though they later reconciled in public, insiders say the wound never fully healed. Aretha kept soaring. Irma chose peace and privacy. Behind the glamour of soul music lies this tragic tale, a haunting reminder that sometimes the deepest rivalries aren't played out in headlines, but at the dinner table. The story of the Franklin sisters is one of talent, tension, and the heartbreaking cost of fame within a family. Eda James and CTO James, cousins torn apart by fame and bitterness. Eda James, an R&B powerhouse, rose to immortal status the moment she recorded at last, securing her place among the greats. But behind her meteoric rise was a family rift few ever heard about. Her cousin, CTO James, also a gifted singer who once harmonized with Eda in church choirs, never got her moment. While Eda lit up national stages, CTO faded into the dim corners of small Los Angeles clubs, left in the shadows, watching from the sidelines. Their bond, once forged in gospel melodies, cracked in 1960 when Eda signed with Chess Records and took off. According to whispers in the local scene, CTO spiraled into bitterness. One night, visibly drunk at a neighborhood club, she lashed out, accusing Eda of stealing the family spotlight, claiming her rise wasn't just talent, but connections made behind closed doors. The rumor spread fast through the R&B underworld of LA. And it reached Eda. Eda, known for her fierce loyalty and zero tolerance for drama, didn't hesitate. She cut ties immediately. No more invitations. No more mentions. From that moment forward, CTO became a ghost in Eda's story. In 1962, CTO made one final attempt, a solo record released under the name James. But it backfired. The public expected another Eda and harshly criticized the comparison. The record flopped. Her music career stalled. And the bitterness grew deeper. By 1965, at a large family reunion, CTO refused to show up, not because of scheduling, but because she refused to sit at the same table as the cousin she believed had stolen her light. From that day forward, they were never seen together again. Even in later interviews, when Eda reminisced about her childhood, she never once mentioned CTO's name. What was once a bond of blood and shared dreams became a silent, lifelong standoff, buried under the weight of fame, pride, and wounds that never healed. Marvin Gaye and Zola Gay, a soul legend and a sister left in the shadows. Marvin Gaye, an irreplaceable icon of soul and R&B, rose to greatness with timeless hits like What's Going On and Sexual Healing. But behind his legendary voice was a fractured family story few ever heard. His younger sister, Zola Gay, had dreams of her own, artistic, passionate, and aching to be seen. But she could never escape Marvin's massive shadow. Their story begins in the early 1970s. Marvin was a superstar, but behind the spotlight, he was drowning, fighting with Motown, clashing with his father, and battling demons he couldn't outrun. In 1971, as What's Going On shook the music world, Zola reached out, hoping her brother could open a door for her at Motown. But Marvin, tangled in drugs, depression, and label wars, turned her away. No explanation. Just silence. Her hope turned to heartbreak. By 1973, the pain boiled over during a family gathering. In front of everyone, Zola erupted, calling Marvin selfish, accusing him of basking in fame while ignoring the people who loved him. Marvin didn't hold back. He fired back, coldly telling her she didn't have the strength to survive the music industry. That one exchange shattered their bond. They stopped speaking. Zola faded into silence. Marvin spiraled deeper into tragedy until the unthinkable happened. His own father shot him dead in 1984. The siblings never reconciled. Years later, Zola wrote a heartbreaking memoir. In it, she described her brother not just with sorrow, but with a voice that trembled with pain and years of unshed tears. "My brother Marvin," she wrote, less a statement, more a cry stuck between tribute and torment. One was buried by tragedy. The other lived on, haunted by what was never healed. Tina Turner and Ruby Turner, a global icon and her overlooked cousin, bound by blood but divided by silence. Tina, the unstoppable queen of rock and soul, made the world rise to its feet with hits like Proud Mary and Private Dancer. Ruby, a Jamaican-born powerhouse of R&B who rose to fame in the UK, had the voice, the stage presence, and the soul, but she was constantly cast in Tina's shadow, unfairly dubbed a dimmer version of her radiant relative. Their quiet feud sparked in 1984. As Tina roared back into the spotlight with Private Dancer, reclaiming her throne after years in exile, Ruby joined her UK tour as a backup singer. It should have been a golden opportunity, an honor even, but for Ruby, it turned into a bitter memory. At a tense London rehearsal, Tina publicly corrected Ruby's performance, offering no acknowledgement of their family bond. No warm welcome. No recognition. Just strict directions and cold professionalism. Humiliated and hurt, Ruby walked out. She later said it felt like being treated as a stranger, not kin, just another hired voice in the background. That moment was the breaking point. From then on, Ruby forged her own path, determined to rise without riding Tina's coattails. But the comparisons never stopped. The media kept calling her the other Turner, a lesser flame to Tina's wildfire. Ruby pushed back, fiercely defending her individuality. She refused to use her cousin's fame as leverage. The distance between them grew. They rarely spoke, never collaborated again, and any mention of their bloodline became taboo. Tina remained silent, seemingly unaffected. Ruby, in interviews, dodged questions with careful restraint. Behind the glitz and the legacy, a quiet wound lingered. Two women, two stars, linked by name but divided by pride, pain, and the silence that fame so often demands. Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole. A legacy, a rebellion, and a final stand. Nat King Cole was more than a jazz and R&B legend. He was an icon, a voice that defined an era. His daughter, Natalie Cole, lit up the 1970s with her own breakout hit, This Will Be, but behind the spotlight was a deeper struggle. Natalie wasn't just fighting for fame, she was fighting for herself. From the start, Natalie was trapped in a race she never signed up for. Before she could even find her footing, the world was already comparing her to her father's ghost. Every performance, every lyric, every move was measured against a man who had become immortal. Fans expected a second Nat. Even her own family hoped she'd follow the path he left behind. But Natalie had other plans. Her rebellion came to a head in 1980 at a tribute concert in Los Angeles honoring her father. As the crowd waited for her to sing Unforgettable, Natalie made a stunning choice. She refused. Not because she'd forgotten the words, but because she was tired of living in someone else's song. The fallout was immediate. Headlines branded her the defiant daughter. Some relatives called her ungrateful. Reporters hounded her, demanding answers. She stopped mentioning her father's name in interviews, drawing a hard line between their legacies. Public opinion split. Some admired her courage. Others said she was turning her back on a sacred legacy. For years, the tension lingered. Then, in 1991, Natalie did the unexpected. She released Unforgettable, with Love, a tribute album where she reimagined her father's songs, not to honor him, but to reclaim them. Her way. The album won 7 Grammys and became a cultural moment. Many saw it as healing. But for Natalie, it was something deeper. "This isn't me running from the shadow," she once said. "This is me stepping out of it." Aretha Franklin and Carolyn Franklin, two sisters bound by blood, but divided by destiny. While the world crowned Aretha the undisputed queen of soul, few ever noticed the woman in her shadow, her younger sister, Carolyn Franklin. Carolyn didn't crave the spotlight, but she deserved it. She was the genius behind haunting ballads like Ain't No Way, a song that pierced hearts when it hit the airwaves in 1968. But as the applause thundered, it was Aretha's name the world shouted, not Carolyn's. That silence cut deeper than any insult. Behind the closed doors of Atlantic Studios, whispers say Carolyn snapped. She confronted Aretha head-on, demanding recognition, not just for the lyrics, but for her soul poured into every line. Aretha, proud and poised, shot back in front of the stunned crew, "You belong in the studio, not under the lights." The words landed like a slap. From that moment, Carolyn's name began to fade from the credits. She tried going solo, releasing heartfelt albums that critics ignored, not because she lacked talent, but because the industry only had room for one Franklin. Promoters passed. Labels hesitated. Even the press looked the other way. And as her health declined in the 1980s, so did her hopes. The sisters eventually made peace. Aretha even brought Carolyn back into the studio. But those close to Carolyn say the wound never healed. One day, she told a sound engineer, "Even when I die, no one will remember I gave that song its soul." History remembers the queen. But in her shadow stood the unsung architect of that legacy, Carolyn Franklin, the sister who gave so much and got so little, Edwin Hawkins and Walter Hawkins. Two brothers bound by blood, but torn apart by a gospel war no one saw coming. Edwin revolutionized the world with "Oh Happy Day," a crossover gospel anthem that shook the charts and introduced the sacred to the secular. Meanwhile, his younger brother Walter, a pastor with a powerhouse voice, poured his soul into the Love Center choir, keeping gospel grounded in its deep, spiritual roots. They were two stars in the same sky, but burning in opposite directions. One was embraced by the mainstream, the other by the church. The real fracture came in 1975. Edwin took center stage at a major international award show, a moment that should have been shared. But Walter, the man who helped shape the Hawkins legacy, was left in the wings. Watching. Forgotten. That night lit the fuse. Walter, hurt and furious, didn't hold back. He accused Edwin of diluting gospel for commercial gain, even calling "Oh Happy Day" gospel for white folks. The comments sent shockwaves through the gospel community. It wasn't just a critique, it was a dagger to Edwin's heart. Edwin fired back. He claimed Walter was jealous. That his old-school gospel couldn't reach the youth, couldn't fill arenas. That his sound, while righteous, was fading. What followed wasn't just a feud, it was a family earthquake. At a tense gathering in Oakland, decades of buried resentment erupted. Voices rose. Lines were drawn. And Walter walked out, vowing never to share a stage with Edwin again. From that moment on, they walked separate roads. Walter nurtured the Love Center into a sanctuary of pure, unshaken gospel. Edwin traveled the globe, blending gospel with R&B and soul, igniting audiences across cultures. For years, their silent rivalry echoed behind choir stands and pulpit whispers. It wasn't until 1980 at a charity concert that they stood side by side once more. A brief, fragile reunion. A flicker of what could have been. But the scars ran deep. Behind the fame, the hits, the hallelujahs, there was heartbreak. A quiet war that never truly ended. Jackie Clark Chisholm and Darinda Clark Cole, two powerhouse voices bound by blood, but divided by ambition. Within the legendary gospel group, the Clark sisters, known for chart-topping hits like "Blessed and Highly Favored," a silent storm brewed between these two siblings. Jackie, the steady leader and vocal anchor of the group, commanded respect. Darinda, with fire in her spirit and talent to match, was ready to step out of the shadows. By 1988, the group had soared to new heights with "Conqueror." But when Darinda asked to lead a new song, hoping for a moment to shine, it triggered more than just a conversation, it ignited a bitter power struggle. Jackie, ever the protector of the group's image and sound, shut it down, claiming Darinda wasn't ready for the spotlight. The disagreement grew heated. Rehearsals stopped. Shows were canceled. For months, the group was paralyzed. Then came the turning point. Darinda walked out before a major performance, making headlines and fueling rumors. Was this rebellion? Or a desperate reach for independence? Tensions spilled into the public eye, especially when Darinda released her solo album in 2002. Critics praised it, fans loved it, and comparisons to Jackie were unavoidable. Behind closed doors, Jackie saw it as betrayal, accusing Darinda of trying to eclipse her own family. Though a reunion came in 1995, and the sisters once again shared the stage, the energy had changed. Darinda sang like she had something to prove, never backing down, never blending in. The harmony they created on stage masked a lingering, painful rift underneath. What was once a sisterhood forged in faith and music became a cautionary tale of ego, envy, and the cost of chasing greatness within a family that already had it all. Shaka Khan and Takaboom, a bloody family feud played out under the funk lights. Shaka Khan, the unstoppable queen of funk, dominated the 70s and 80s with powerhouse anthems like "I'm Every Woman." Behind her, in both blood and background vocals, stood her sister, Takaboom. An R&B and funk singer in her own right, Taka dreamed of carving out her own path to stardom. But what began as sisterly support soon spiraled into a heartbreaking battle of egos, ambition, and betrayal. In 1978, Shaka was a rising supernova, commanding every spotlight she touched. When Taka joined her on tour, it seemed like the golden ticket, a chance to rise alongside her legendary sister. But that dream quickly curdled. At a major Chicago show, Taka felt like little more than background noise, pushed to the shadows. The final blow? Shaka allegedly denied her a promised solo. Mid-performance, Taka stormed off the stage. The audience was stunned. Backstage, the fallout exploded. Taka accused Shaka of stealing all the glory, of deliberately holding her back. Shaka fired back coldly, saying Taka wasn't ready for the spotlight, that she lacked the experience to lead. And just like that, the bond broke. What followed were years of silence, tension, and a feud that never fully healed. Throughout the 80s, the sisters avoided each other like bitter rivals at war. Taka pursued her solo career, but Shaka's towering legacy loomed large, often eclipsing her every move. Family members became go-betweens, relaying messages between them. Rumors of their rift rippled through the R&B world, though the full story stayed locked behind closed doors. A public truce surfaced briefly during a Christmas event in 1985, but insiders knew better. The smiles were for the cameras, the wounds ran deep. This wasn't just a story of two stars. It was a painful family drama, steeped in envy, pride, and the unforgiving glare of show business. A tale where fame didn't just elevate, it divided. Denise Clark Bradford and Twinkie Clark, the silent war that tore the Clark sisters apart. Behind the heavenly harmonies of the Clark sisters, one of gospel music's most legendary groups, raged a storm of silent betrayal and buried pain. At the center of it all were two sisters, Denise Clark Bradford and Eda Twinkie Clark. Twinkie, hailed as the mother of modern gospel, was the group's musical backbone, penning the iconic hit You Brought the Sunshine. Denise, a radiant and fiery presence, walked away from the group in 1986 at the height of their fame, and lit the fuse of a family feud that never truly healed. That year, tensions boiled over in a Detroit studio. Denise, fed up with being overshadowed, accused Twinkie of dominating the group and chasing solo stardom under the guise of sisterhood. Twinkie clapped back, claiming Denise lacked the dedication and resilience the group demanded. Words turned sharp, voices rose, and in a flash, Denise stormed out, vowing never to return. But this wasn't just a musical split. It was a deep, personal rupture in the Clark family legacy. While Twinkie went on to lead the group to gospel greatness, the shadow of Denise's absence loomed large. Rumors swirled of betrayal, abandonment, and unresolved wounds. Denise kept her distance, skipping reunions, refusing interviews, and communicating through relatives. The silence between them became deafening. To the world, the Clark sisters glowed with unity and praise. But behind the spotlight, a quiet war was being waged, a struggle for identity, recognition, and respect. Denise and Twinkie's fallout wasn't just about songs or solos. It was about survival in a family where love, legacy, and leadership collided. This was no ordinary sibling spat. It was a gospel tragedy, etched in pain, pride, and the unspoken ache of what might have been. Karen Clark Sherd and Kiara Sherd, two powerhouse voices, one legendary bloodline, and a rift that echoed beyond the gospel world. Karen, the iconic member of the Clark sisters, helped define modern gospel. Her daughter, Kiara, came up in that same tradition, but with a twist. Young, bold, and brimming with talent, Kiara fused gospel with sleek R&B and hip-hop influences, carving out her own sound and identity. But in the early 2000s, that boldness sparked more than just buzz, it sparked conflict. When Kiara began stepping out from under the Clark family legacy, tensions rose. In 2005, a joint project between mother and daughter ended in disaster. Karen reportedly accused Kiara of drifting too far from gospel's sacred roots, seduced by the pull of the secular world. Kiara fired back. She felt misunderstood, boxed in by tradition and unseen by her own mother. She pushed forward with a fresh, youthful energy that didn't sit well with gospel purists. The feud became painfully public when Kiara released a music video that pointedly excluded Karen. Whispers turned into headlines. Fans began to wonder, was this the beginning of a spiritual and generational split? Though the two would later appear on stage together, most notably in Kiara's 2008 album Bold Right Life, many believed the wounds hadn't fully healed. The media continued to frame Kiara's rise as a dramatic breakaway from Karen's towering shadow. In a world where gospel music is built on harmony, both musically and spiritually, the quiet storm between mother and daughter remains a haunting reminder that even the holiest voices can carry the weight of real, human pain. Juan and Deborah Joy Winans. The quiet sacrifice that launched a dream. In a world where the spotlight is everything, Juan Winans chose to step aside so his sister could shine. A rising R&B and gospel star at the time, known from Phase 2 and the group We Got Next, Juan had the chance to sign a major recording deal in 2007. But instead he walked away from it. To stand by his sister, Deborah Joy Winans, as she struggled to find her place in the industry. Deborah, blessed with a powerful voice and raw talent, was still unknown outside of the famed Winans family name. Juan became her coach, mentor, and biggest cheerleader. Quietly, he arranged a surprise gospel concert at a Detroit church, giving her the lead on the song It Belongs to Me. Before hundreds of people, Deborah poured her soul into the performance and broke down in tears, overwhelmed by her brother's sacrifice. That moment wasn't just emotional, it was pivotal. The performance rippled through gospel circles like a whispered miracle, and many believe it helped open the door to her breakout role in Greenleaf. Since then, the siblings have continued to uplift one another, with fans calling them the Winans silent heroes. Proof that sometimes, the biggest dreams are born from the quietest acts of love. Toni Braxton and Tamar Braxton. A sisterhood wrapped in talent, tension, and an unending battle for the spotlight. Toni, the legendary R&B icon, soared to stardom with Unbreak My Heart, setting a gold standard for soulful ballads. Years later, Tamar burst onto the scene with Love and War, and a storm of emotion that made her just as unforgettable. But behind the scenes, their bond was anything but smooth. When Braxton family values hit the airwaves in 2011, the simmering tension between them finally boiled over. Tamar, tired of being seen as just Toni's little sister, accused Toni on camera of deliberately sidelining her from major opportunities, just to keep the spotlight for herself. Toni fired back, calling Tamar impatient and fame-obsessed. The drama reached a boiling point in Atlanta when Tamar stormed out of a family event, then released Love and War with no mention of her superstar sister in the promotions. Though the sisters eventually made peace in front of the cameras, fans could still feel the silent competition that lingered beneath every smile and hug. In the House of Braxton, the stage was big enough for only one star, and neither was willing to dim her light. Fantasia Barrino and Rico Barrino, the cousins whose bond was stronger than fame. When Fantasia won American Idol in 2004, the world saw a single mother rise to stardom overnight. But what they didn't see was the man behind the voice, her cousin Rico, a gifted rapper and R&B artist who quietly stood by her side through it all. Long before the spotlight found her, Rico had been in the shadows, helping Fantasia rehearse for hours, coaching every note, guiding every breath. Their connection was unshakable. At her first major hometown concert in North Carolina, Fantasia pulled Rico on stage without warning. The crowd gasped. Then she sang him a soul-stirring gospel line, just one verse, that brought Rico to tears in front of thousands. That moment sealed something sacred between them. Together, they later wrote a powerful, unreleased track called A Private Promise, a song born from struggle, loyalty, and unspoken dreams. Though the industry road was rough, their bond became their anchor. It wasn't just music. It was family, faith, and the kind of love that doesn't need the spotlight to shine. Gerald and Shawn Levert, a brotherly feud that tore a family apart. Gerald Levert lit up the R&B world with smooth vocals and chart-topping hits like Casanova, while his brother Shawn Levert, though talented, struggled to find his own spotlight. Together they once stood united in the group Levert. But fame has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. By 1995, Gerald's solo career had exploded, and tensions began to boil. Shawn, feeling pushed aside in the very group he helped create, accused Gerald of hogging the spotlight and shutting him out of key songwriting credits. The final straw came during a live show when Shawn erupted backstage, confronting Gerald in a heated exchange that left the family reeling. Gerald stood his ground, insisting Shawn wasn't ready for the big leagues. That confrontation led to a painful rift. The brothers went their separate ways, and while Gerald continued to rise, Shawn's solo efforts never took off. The silence between them lasted for years, until a fragile truce was formed just before tragedy struck. In 2006, Gerald died suddenly, leaving Shawn devastated and drowning in unresolved guilt. The stage lights dimmed, but the shadows of what could have been still haunt the story of these two gifted brothers. Eda and Stuart Mann, the emotional story behind Smooth Operator that left an entire room breathless. Eda, the enchanting voice of global R&B, wasn't alone in her rise. Behind the velvet sound of Smooth Operator stood Stuart Mann, her cousin, her collaborator, and the quiet genius behind the music. In 1984, as the band Sod raced to finish their debut album Diamond Life, Stuart practically lived in the studio, losing sleep while perfecting every haunting note of that now iconic track. Some say Smooth Operator was more than just a hit, it was Stuart's silent tribute to Sod herself. When they took the stage in London for their first major performance, the emotions were too much to contain. Sod turned to Stuart, calling him out in front of the roaring crowd. He nearly dropped his saxophone, overwhelmed. The two embraced, cousins, creators, and co-dreamers, bonded not just by blood, but by a musical legacy that was only just beginning. The world knew them as Sod, but behind that name was a rare and powerful connection that turned sound into soul. Her back, the pain cuts deeper than any lyric. Coco's soaring vocals helped SWV dominate the charts in the 90s, but behind the fame was a fractured bond. Her mother, Lady Tiba Gamble, a respected gospel singer, was once her biggest inspiration. But when SWV's debut album It's About Time blew up in 1993, a family meeting turned into a bitter confrontation. Lady Tiba accused Coco of abandoning her gospel roots for the devil's music, while Coco fired back, calling her mother out of touch and unwilling to evolve. The fallout was swift. Lady Tiba stopped attending her daughter's shows, and whispers spread that jealousy may have fueled the silence. Years later, in 2006, just as Coco's R&B fame began to dim, her mother re-entered her life. They even shared a stage in 2008, but many say the scars of that rift never truly healed. And that's just one of the 21 shocking stories of Black R&B singers and the family secrets most fans never knew. Which story surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and before you go, don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell icon for more untold truths behind the music.